My name is Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian Financial Channel, and today we're going to be talking about housing expenses. As we start to look at putting together a budget that will work, probably the largest expense in that budget is going to be your housing. And so I wanted to look at a couple of examples from two different sides of it, as far as looking at your income first and then looking at what you're actually paying on your mortgage second. And hopefully this will give us some figures that will help us to be able to work a reasonable budget that doesn't put too much stress on our finances. The reason this is called Common Sense Christian is not because I think I have so much common sense, but it's because Christianity is a common sense religion. A lot of people look at it in a much different way, and they say things like they're going to trust in God, they're not going to think about tomorrow, and all sorts of ridiculous things that are absolutely unbiblical. It's not unbiblical to trust in God, but it is unbiblical to be presumptuous. And if you're not thinking about tomorrow, if you're not thinking about your responsibilities that you have today, it may very well be that you're not the type of steward that God expects you to be. We want to make sure that as we look at everything in our life, and especially on this channel, our finances, that we're handling them in a way that's going to be pleasing to God. So today, again, we're going to be looking specifically at the budget item of housing. And we're going to start with an example of a couple or an individual that has $50,000 annual salary. That's what they get paid each year. But as you know, you don't get to take home all of that. That's after taxes. That's going to be much closer to $40,000, because in America, on a $50,000 salary, you're going to be paying about 20%, or about $10,000 annually, just in taxes to run the government. This is federal taxes, this is Social Security, this is disability and unemployment, and this is also state taxes if you have state taxes. And so if you're making a $50,000 annual salary, your take-home pay is going to be much closer to $40,000 a year, and that comes out to $3,333 a month, about $3,300 a month after taxes. This is what we're going to be working with. Christians very often, as a matter of fact, one of the parts of being a good Christian is to be responsible in your giving. And so you're going to be wanting to also figure in your giving before you look at your other expenses. If you're just starting out, if you've already messed up your budget, then you're going to be in a little bit different situation. But my encouragement to you would be to figure out what you can give to God that's in compliance with the New Testament principles. Remember, Old Testament principles were tithing, 10%. But the New Testament commands us to give in keeping with our income, to do so cheerfully, to do so generously. The idea is we give God the first consideration, the first fruits, if you will. And so I'm going to use 10% for this example. That may be way too high for your reality. You're going to be able to figure that out, and it's between you and God. It's not for somebody else to decide. And so I just used 10% for this example, and 10% of this $3,333.33 is $333. And so you're going to end up with about $3,000 a month for your basic budget to be able to pay for all of your expenses, including savings if you want to save. And so a $50,000 salary is going to end up about $3,000 a month that you have to be able to spend on your expenses. This is very important. For so many years in the lending industry, they had a very firm percentage of what they would lend to you as far as a mortgage payment went, and that was 28% of your take-home pay. And so, in other words, if you had this $50,000 salary, and they would be looking at this, probably the $3,300 fee, and that's going to leave you with about $900 a month for your mortgage payment or for your rent payment. But again, this 30% of your total take-home after giving is going to be about $900 for a $50,000 salary. Well, as you know, $900 a month doesn't buy a lot of house in America. It's going to be hard to even find a decent rental at that price in many markets, but it can be done. When I was growing up, when my parents were growing up, they had something called starter homes, and it was something usually very modest. It was very often less than 1,000 square feet. It might have a garage, it might not. 3 bedrooms probably at the most, and just 1 bathroom. And this was the starter home that most people started out, and they could afford that. Now, so often couples, they want to replace what they had at mama and daddy's when they left for college, comparing their situation to their mom and dad's after their mom and dad had worked a lifetime. Well, that's kind of an unrealistic expectation, but people still have them, and they get in very often over their heads. This will help you not get in over your head. If you haven't bought a house yet, if you haven't signed that lease yet, keep in mind a figure of about 30% of your take-home pay, and that's going to give you a good amount. The 40%, though, will also include things like utilities, which is your heat and air conditioning, your electricity, your water, and your sewer. And so that'd be about $1,200 a month for a $50,000 salary. And so if you're figuring housing expenses, all housing expenses, that's probably going to be much closer to about 40% of your take-home pay is reasonable, and that's going to give you about $1,200 for everything, your mortgage plus your utilities. If you buy an old fixer-upper home that needs a lot of work on it, that has a questionable furnace, a shaky roof, and things like that, well, you're going to have to add into those monthly expenses a reasonable repair allowance. And so these are all things to keep in mind. But this is what will help you, I believe, to set a budget. 30% for your mortgage payment or rent, 40% for the entirety of your housing expenses. Now, let's look at it from the other side. Let's say you have a $100,000 mortgage, or you're looking at getting a $100,000 mortgage after your down payment. Well, our interest rate right now in March of 2025 is about 7%. And so for a $100,000 of mortgage at 7%, that's going to be a payment, your principal and interest, of $665 a month. That's not all they're going to charge you for your mortgage payment. They also have something they call an escrow account. And in that escrow account, the bank sets up an account for you that they're going to pay certain bills. One of them is your mortgage insurance premium. If you owe, or if your loan is less than 80% or more than 80% of the value of your home, you're going to be paying a mortgage insurance premium of about 1% annually of your mortgage. So $1,000 would be 1%, about $85 a month would be your mortgage insurance premium. Tack onto that homeowner's insurance, and in most markets that's going to be about $100 per month for a $100,000 home. But it's going to be a lot higher in certain areas, so check your locality to make sure you understand what you're getting into. But about $100 a month for your homeowner's insurance, and then probably another $200 a month for your real estate taxes. Some states are going to be a little bit lower than that. Some are going to be a lot higher. Texas does not have a state income tax, and so your take-home's a little bit more, but they make up for it on the real estate tax side of it. For a $100,000 house, you're going to be looking at closer to $400 a month on your real estate taxes. So, again, check all these things out before you sign the dotted line on that mortgage. But $665 a month for your principal and interest, another $85 for your private mortgage insurance, another $100 a month for your homeowner's insurance, and then another $200 a month for your taxes. That's going to give you a monthly expense that you're going to write a check to your bank for of about $1,050 a month. Well, that's less than the $900, isn't it? That shows you're going to need more than a $50,000 annual salary to be able to pay for that and keep it within industry guidelines of 30% of your take-home pay. And so realistically, you're going to need about $3,500 a month after taxes and giving to be able to support a $1,050 payment. And so that's going to be an annual salary of about $58,000. So anyway, hopefully these two examples will give you something to start with. Your numbers are going to be a little bit different, but your percentages will not be that much different, whether we're talking about your taxes or we're talking about your percentage that you have set aside for your mortgage payment, rent payment, and all the rest of your expenses. So anyway, this is the figure, the type of figure that we'll be using as we start getting into our more specific budget. But this gives you a place to start on the highest budget item that you will very likely have. And I hope it helps. Well, thank you for tuning in today. I hope this is something that helps you. If you think it might help others, do me a favor and share it with them. If you like the video, it'll help it get around to a few more people. This is just starting out, this channel, and so not a lot of people are watching it yet. Hopefully more will join on if the material is something that's going to be helpful to you, and I hope that it is. But again, thank you for listening today. I hope we'll see you tomorrow.